Hello and welcome to this live stream, which is about user management. So this is the ultimate guide to Drupal user management. My name is Ivan and I've been doing these live streams now for a month or two, and I've been doing it weekly, which has been great. So if you're new to this channel and you want to learn more about Drupal, just check out the other videos where I've covered other Drupal concepts. But today we are going to focus on the user system, because the user system is often neglected. It is a part of Drupal that you have to use, you have to set up, but you can sometimes forget about it. And you know, it's got its own little nuances on how users and permissions are stored. So today I want to try and cover some common concepts such as what the user system is, how users log in, register, settings, how to define roles, permissions, and then we're going to take a look at a few contrib modules that you can use, such as password policy, role duplication that allows you, role delegation that allows you to assign roles without giving people too much access, and also profile module, which allows you to create user profiles. So with that, let's jump right in. So here I've got a stock standard Drupal site, and let me first log out, because believe it or not, the first thing, the absolutely first time somebody ever uses Drupal, they will have to log into it. So let's start from the beginning. How do you log into a Drupal site? Well, if you go to the URL, you can just type in /user and it will take you to the login page. You also have a create new account if it's been configured. And what I mean by that is you can actually switch off the ability to create new accounts. Because sometimes you may not want people or random bots to register accounts. Then you can also reset your password. So this is the forgotten password feature. And you can access all of these by going to /user/login, user/create, and user/password. Or if your theme is nice enough, or your site builders are nice enough to add in links, you can access it from here as well. Just click on login here in the top right, and you can access the site. But generally, you won't have a login link unless you allow the anonymous users or the public to register. So just remember, /user will get you to the login page. So let's go ahead and log in. And I'll log in with my admin account, which I used when I installed the site. When you log in with your admin account or user one, you will see this people page. From here, you can manage user accounts. Now, one thing to be aware of is that user one, or the root user, is called user one because up the top here, you will see user/1, meaning that the ID or the UID of the user is number one. And so when you install Drupal using when you just install Drupal using any installation profile, I'm just used to saying when you install Drupal using the standard installation profile, but no, when you install Drupal for the first time, you create a user account. This is user one. And think of this as a root user, similar to Linux, where Drupal, back in Drupal 6 and 7 days, user one had access to everything. I do think Drupal 8 and above, so 9 and 10, 8, 9 and 10, I think it is, don't quote me on this, but I think there has been a push to move away from user one controlling or having access to everything. But you want to really control who has access to user one. So often you would either block it or just create separate accounts for everyone else. So try and avoid using it. But when you register for the first time, that is the account you can use. And then from here, you can search for your user accounts. You can also block them and make them active. You can filter by roles, and also you can filter by permissions. You can also do bulk operations similar to any type of content in Drupal. Now, if you edit the user account, you'll notice that user 1 cannot be deleted. What did I do just there? Sorry about that. As you can see here, user 1 cannot be deleted. So it is required, okay? So it cannot be deleted. You can define the locale settings, the contact settings, and all this stuff can be configured. You can also block user accounts, and also you can change passwords as well. Then if you want to create an account, you can just go ahead and click on Add User and go and create your account. Up the top here from permissions, you can control which roles get which permissions. And this page right now is pretty small, but you can imagine as you add in a bunch of roles, this page will increase in size. And then if you want to manage your roles, you can do so by clicking on roles right here. One thing to be aware of is that Drupal does come with 2 hard-coded roles, and they are anonymous user and authenticated user. Anonymous user is used for non-logged in users. So if you access the site without being logged in, so any type of public user, they will automatically be assigned the anonymous user role. So if you are writing code or you want non-logged in users to have access to things, then you assign them the anonymous user role. Authenticated user role is for anyone to be logged in. However, understand that even if somebody's been assigned the administrator role or the content editor role, they will still have the authenticated user role. So this account, which is the admin role, which is the admin user, has the administrator role. But if I was to log in, I would also have authenticated role by default because any logged in user gets the authenticated role. So if you want to give users permission, let me rephrase that. If you want to give all logged in users permission to a specific part of the site, then give it to the authenticated user role. If you want to give a specific role some type of permission, then you would give it to the specific role. So just remember that. So technically, you will always get at least one authenticated role, and that is the authenticated user role, and then you'll get either content editor or administrator, depending what's been assigned to you. Then if you click on role settings, here you can define an administrator role. Essentially, the administrator role is granted all permissions. Now confusingly, the administrator role option has selected the administrator role, so it's a bit confusing, but you could change this role name to be root or something, root user, super user, and then when you assign the administrator role to a specific role, that means if you come over here in permissions, you'll see that administrator gets every single permission. And while we're here, I'll also demonstrate that if we select authenticated user, so let's say, for example, we want to allow this view official announcements related to Drupal. Now, that is this option up the top here. If we select content editor, only content editor gets it. Simple. But if you select authenticated, you'll notice that content editor automatically gets it and it is disabled because any user that has content editor will automatically have authenticated user role. So that kind of demonstrates my whole concept, what I was trying to explain, that every logged in user will get authenticated user role. Of course, the anonymous user role is just for non-logged in users. Now, if you go to configuration and account settings. From here, you can configure settings around users. So the first option is contact settings. So if you want to allow a contact form on each user profile. Now, this is a bit of a oldish Drupal thing. You may want to turn it off, but this is only really useful if you allow people to register on your site. Then you can change the name for your anonymous users. Then below that, we have registration and cancellation. This option here, who can register accounts? This is important. If you want to stop users from registering totally, then just check administrators only. This won't allow anyone to register. If you select visitors, that means anyone can register. But if you have require email authentication, when a visitor creates an account, that means that they will have to approve their account with an email address. But again, that can be bypassed, honestly. That can easily be bypassed. The other option is visitors, but administrator approval is required. So that means somebody will register, but then another user with the correct permission has to go in there and approve it. So all accounts are blocked by default. Now, you may be thinking, well, if I want to allow people to register and then I control if they get approved, I will leave it selected on this one. You can leave it, but just be warned, you will get spam accounts created. And if you leave it on long enough, you'll have 1,000 blocked accounts. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. And then, as I mentioned, this require email verification. Just means that an email will be sent. You want to make sure your Drupal site has been configured to send emails. And then we have email enable password strength indicator. That is this option right here. You can see this indicator. You can turn that on or off. Now, this doesn't stop you from creating weak passwords. This will just recommend a better password. Then you have the when canceling a user account. This is an interesting one because I've seen sites being totally broken when people have cleaned up a whole bunch of user accounts because they realized that certain content was required by code. So they went into a site, they cleaned up a bunch of user accounts, and they did things such as delete the account and make its content belong to the anonymous user. That kind of broke things. I've also seen disable the account and unpublish its content, especially if you had custom code in the theme that depended on that content. And then you also have disable the account and keep its content. Generally, I would recommend that you think twice about purging editor accounts, especially if they've created content. And if you really want to do it, well, then take a backup of your database and run the procedure on non-prod environment before you do it in production. That's my tip. Do that. You want to make sure that you can safely delete or remove users or disable them and not have your site absolutely explode. Then further down, you have emails. So these are all the emails that Drupal will send out, like a welcome email, admin email, activation, account activated, blocked, cancellation, canceled, password recovery. If you want to come in here and change them, you can do so. And then up the top here, because users are a fieldable entity, you can create fields and attach them to users. So you get the standard manage fields, manage form display, and manage display. This is just standard field field management, and I have covered the field system in depth in another video. So if you want to learn more about it, just head over to the WebWash YouTube channel or wherever you're watching this, and you should find a video about the Drupal field system. All right, let's go ahead now and create a user role, because that's where you'll spend a lot of site building, managing user roles. So what we're going to do is go to people, and then click on roles, and I'll call this one article editor. And this article editor will just be able to control and create articles. So let's click on save, and here you can see our article editor. And if you want to edit permissions just for this particular role, you can do so just by selecting edit permissions from the roles page. Something I also like to do is create a test account. So let me go ahead and create article editor. And I'll copy this across as a username, and I'll also do that as a password because this is a local site. Doesn't really matter. And I'll click on save. Okay. Let me pop that to the right, and I'll pop an incognito window to the left, and then we can test things out, because trust me, this is what you want to do. This is how you want to actually test things. You want to use the site and then apply permissions to it. So I'll call this one, well, no, what was it? I have an article, yep. And then we're logged in. All right. May have to open this up a bit more just so we can see it. Well, let's see how we go. Okay. And let's close this one and close this one. Perfect. All right. So the first permission that we're going to create is the contextual links. So you know these contextual links here, if you take a look on the right hand side, you'll see like these nice contextual links. It's good to have those. So the first option will be scroll down till you find contextual links. We will use the contextual links. Then below, if we scroll down, let's select files so you can access the files page, and I'll assign it access files overview and delete own files. And let's also give it the use the full HTML. And if we then scroll down in the node section, that's where you manage all of your content types. So we want to allow create article, and we'll delete, scroll a bit further down, delete own. Where is that? The top here, delete own article. We will edit own article. I am looking at my list of permissions here because you can see that it takes a bit of time setting up permissions. And if you have 5 or 6 different content types, you have to really pay attention and make sure that you're selecting, okay, the right amount of permissions. And if you do want to give access to a new content type, you have to make sure, okay, I need to give it the create permissions, edit own, delete own, edit any, delete any, all these little bits and pieces. It can be a little tedious, to be honest. All right, so we have that. Let's also delete revisions. Access the content overview page is important. And let's also select view own unpublished, and then view revisions and revert revisions. You also want to take note of these little messages right here. And that is warning, give to trusted roles only. Be aware of that. Then if we scroll down, we can assign administer URL aliases, and I do believe that is it. No. Actually, under systems, this is important. So right under systems, we have administer, no, use the administration pages and view the administration theme, so they can actually see the backend theme. And we'll let them create the tags term and also edit the tags. And finally, use the toolbar. That is pretty useful. All right. Done. Now, if we refresh, we can see the toolbar. We can see the admin. I think if we go and edit, we can see the admin theme, which is great. Then if we come along in here, we can go ahead and create a test piece of content, test article body, and we should be able to switch it to full HTML. Perfect. And tag 1, should be able to create it, and we can create it. Perfect. So everything is working, and we can adjust the URL alias. Okay. So this is working. Now, one thing to be aware of, and this is a common issue that you get when you're configuring permissions, is if you all of a sudden change the permission around these text formats. So let's change this to full HTML. And then if I come along in here, and where was that? Let me remove it. So let's imagine I don't have access to that particular text format. I edit, and then straight away I get this error. This field has been disabled because you do not have sufficient permissions to edit it. Now, the simple workaround for this is to just come along in here and select full HTML, or just give it the exact option and then change it. Or you can log in as admin and then change the text format which is used. You can see here, now we have access to it. So just be aware of that. That is a bit of a gotcha when it comes to managing permissions. All right, now, another important thing to remember, and that is when it comes to assigning permissions to user accounts. Because Drupal's permission system isn't that granular. And you'll notice that straight away. You'll actually notice the first time you're configuring things, you'll be like, okay, I want them to have access to this particular section, but I don't want them to then modify absolutely everything. But sometimes you will have to install a custom module just to give you that extra bit of granular permission. Now, the actual Drupal ecosystem of contrib modules has a ton of modules which are just focused on giving you specific permissions to other parts of Drupal. Now, I'm not going to cover that because that's more for a very specific use case, but chances are, if you want to give users access to their own unpublished content, you can do so. There's a permission for that. If you want to give users access based off terms, you can do that as well. So there are a lot of modules out there. But what I want to show you now is how to give a user the ability to assign roles, but not give them too much access. Because right now, if I want to give this article editor access to assign other users roles, so let's just imagine the article editor role is a elevated role, and they can manage articles as well as manage user accounts as well. Now, what we'll have to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom and then give them the administer users. Now, read this warning right here. Understand that it is a trusted role. You want to make sure you trust the people who have this role. But we're just going to assume that you do trust the people because That's the way you've set up the site. So if we come along in here and we simply refresh, we get access to people, and from here we can manage accounts. So we can edit the account. We can't delete this account. That's very important. We can also edit our own account. And if we come along in here, I do believe we should be able to create another user account. So let me go ahead and create this one. But notice how I can't adjust the roles. That's important. So let me go ahead and create this account. All right. So I've come along in here, and currently this test article editor doesn't have a role. It has the authenticated user role, but that, as we mentioned, that's a hidden role, but it doesn't have the article editor. Now, often on a website, you want to allow users to assign roles as well, because there's really no point of just creating random accounts. We can be lazy and give them the administer, roles, and permissions. But again, this permission gives them too much access, because now they can go ahead and start removing any type of roles, any type of permissions, and they can just go in there and just change whatever they want. So it's not really a solution. Now, the other option is to use a module called, let's open this up, role delegation. The role delegation module gives you specific permissions, and it allows you to specify which role can delegate other roles. So you can say, okay, article editor can only delegate the article editor role, because the user can actually come here. So if I pop this back to the right, this user can just come ahead or come back here and say, well, you know what? I'm going to be an administrator. Go ahead, save it. And they are an administrator. It's not the safest thing to do. So role delegation allows you to simply delegate who has access to specific roles and who can assign those roles. Very important. So if you want to learn more about the module, just head over to drupal.org/project/role_delegation. I've already gone ahead and downloaded it, but you can just download it using this composer command. And let me go to extend and search for role and click on install. Then if I go back into this other tab, let me close that, refresh, and I do believe if I search for role delegation, I will see assign administrator role, assign article editor, or you can just assign any role. So let's give article editor the ability to assign the article editor role, and click on save settings. And most importantly, scroll all the way down and uncheck administer roles and permissions, and then click on save. Perfect. Now, if we refresh, we'll only see the role that we are allowed to delegate, which is article editor, and that is it. If we go back and then click on our test article editor user, we can simply assign article editor as well. And this way, we can only assign the roles that we have access to. So this module is a great way of just controlling who can assign which role to which user. So do we have any questions so far before I jump onto other things? Let me just have a quick look at the other platforms. Where is that stuff? All right, we're gonna just, I'm just having a quick look at comments. Just want to see if there's any comments available. If not, we'll move on. No, there isn't. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right. Okay. All right, let me just close this. Don't need that anymore. Oh, may need it later. Do with it later. All right. Okay. All right. Let's jump on to the next section. So at this point, we have covered how to create user accounts, how to create roles, assign permissions, and also how to change the account settings. Now I want to show you how to add fields to user accounts, because this is where you can actually create user profiles with custom fields. Now, we did cover it earlier on in the account settings section, but if you go to configuration, account settings, you will see this manage fields and manage form display. And what you can do is come along in here and create an account the same way, create a field the same way that you create a field on a content type. So let's go ahead and click on create new field, and I'll call this one full name. So if you want to have a field where users can enter in their full name, you can do so. Go ahead and do that and click on continue. You can make it required. Again, it's up to you. Click on save settings, and then from the manage form display, let's move full name to the top. And then from manage display, we'll also move that. Well, let's move it below picture. So that means that if we go back to people, and let me change this test account. If I scroll down here, I've got the full name. I can add in just the full name, same as any other system in Drupal. Then if I click on the user and go to their profile page, I can see their full name. Pretty straightforward. And when it comes to adding in basic fields, this works pretty well. Now let's talk about issues with this setup, okay? Because I have worked on sites where, so let's go back. Let's go back. There we go. So I have worked on websites where one of the requirements was that user accounts had to have like 15, 16 fields. And we just chucked in all of the fields directly on the user account. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you do that, purely because chances are you'll have some fields that are required. And then what happened was, when we had to create user accounts for just managing the content on the website, they often wouldn't need to fill in all of this information. But because the fields were required, they had to just enter in dummy data, like just put a full stop in or something. And it just made the user management experience not that great. If straight away when you want to create a basic account, you would have to fill in all of this extra data. So if you want to create a profile, some type of profile account, and you want to have a lot of fields on those profile accounts, what I recommend you do is take a look at the profile module. Because what the profile module does is that it allows you to create profile types. Essentially, what you want to do is keep the user account separate to your actual profile data. Because the user account is used to store, in my opinion, is used to log in and store the username, password, and other important information. But you may want to have a teacher profile or a student profile if you are building some type of course site, or you may want to have a buyer profile or a seller profile. You may want to have a user that can have both a buyer and a seller profile. So it's best to keep them separate, and you don't want to create all of these fields and chuck them directly on the user account. So instead, use the profile module to create these profile types and then attach the fields to those profiles. So if you want to learn more about the module, just search for the project and then go ahead and download it using this composer command. I've already done that. And if I go back here, search for profile and click on install. Let's continue. It will download the entity module, but don't worry about that. Composer will handle that, and it will download and install it. Then go to configuration, and you should see profile types. Click on it, and what we're going to do is create a profile type called writer. So let's do that. We'll call it writer as the display label and the normal label. You can also assign it specific roles. So let's just say article can, any user of the article role will have access to this particular profile. You can also allow users to have multiple profiles, which is useful, and you can also include the registration form. You can also include any custom field that we add to this role onto the registration form. Now, it depends how you set up your user accounts, if this is actually necessary. In this case, let's just leave it off. Click on save. And then if we click on manage fields, we get the standard manage fields, manage form display, and manage display, because this is a fieldable entity. So let's go ahead and create a field which will allow us to add in our social links. I'm trying to think of something. Social links. So we'll call this one social links, and let's select link and click on continue. And set it to disabled. We don't want to allow link text, and let's just allow external links, and we'll also allow an unlimited amount of links. Then click on save settings. We have social links right here. Let's leave it set to there, and on the manage display, we've got it set there. Perfect. All right, everything's working. Now, if I log in, let's actually bring up our incognito. Am I still logged in? Probably not. Maybe I am. Am I? No, I'm not. Okay. What was it? Ivan article editor. And I can log in. All right. Now, you may notice I can't actually see my profile. And the reason for that is because we need to assign a role. So let's go back to the right. Let's go to people, and we need to assign a specific role. Let's go to roles, and we need to assign, if I go to profile, I believe, we can view own profiles, view own unpublished, then create own role, and you also want to edit or update own role. You may not want to delete it. You may not want to allow them to delete their own. So it's up to you. Depends on the workflow, depends on what type of site you're making. Let's just set this to view own profiles, view unpublished. Well, actually, no. Actually, we don't want that. We're going to want to view own. Oh, no. Yeah, sorry. View own unpublished roles. Let's just leave it set to that. And create profiles and edit or update to own. All right, hit save. Done. Let's pop that back to the right. Let's expand this. Then if we click on view here, we can see our writer role. And there is nothing in there because what we need to do is, up the top here, click on add profile. And let me chuck in one of my accounts. And we can add in another one. What's another account I've got? I think this one's it. I don't know. Hit save. I've saved it. And now, if I click on writer, I can see this particular profile, which is attached to this account. So you can imagine you can have unlimited amount of fields on this role. And then best of all, if we increase this one and come back to people and then go to profiles, we can then see all of the available profiles on our site. So this is a good way of managing the profiles if you have like customer or supplier profiles. So I do highly recommend that you use the profiles module if you have a need for custom profiles and custom metadata about the user. Now let's look at the password policy module. Because the password policy module is a very useful module, and I use that on pretty much every single site that I use. So let's bring it up. Password policy allows you to define password constraints. So you can set things up such as character types, delays, history, uppercase, lowercase, letters, and so on and so forth. Because you may be thinking, okay, but doesn't Drupal have some type of system where it tells you about the password, that it needs to be 12 characters or less and this and that? Well, yes. So if we come in here and then just chuck in a few things, we do get this down here, but this is a recommendation. It's not a constraint. You can still add in a password of just A and go in there and save it. Okay? Password policy, on the other hand, actually sets a constraint where you have to add in these constraints and you can't actually save the form until these constraints are met. So to use the module, just scroll down and download it. I've already done that. And let's go back into our site. Let's go to extend. And if you search for password, you will see a few options here. So the first one you want to install is password policy. That's the main one. Then what you can do is install a few other constraints. So a lot of these constraints are controlled by submodules. So you have length policy. You have the character types policy, so minimum number of different characters. For the password, you can also set the minimum characters of a particular type the password must contain. You have all these other options here. Delay, how many passwords can be changed and limited. Also have a history, which is useful actually to stop people from putting the same passwords in there. And also restrict users from having their username in their password. But let's just select these ones and click on install. Okay. Now, if you go to configuration. And then scroll down and click on password policies and then click on add policy. This one we'll just call password policy, but as you can see, you can have multiple policies. And let's just leave everything as it is and click on save. Then once you click on save, you get these constraints. And let's assign this to, well, let's assign it to authenticated. You want all user accounts to be forced to put in this, to pass these constraints. And what we can do is put in characters. So minimum number of characters. So this means, well, let's just set it to 2. And let's put in history. The number of passwords that will be checked if the user password update. Okay, so our number of value. So it will check I think the last one. So let's hit that. And finally, character length. Let's make sure there's a minimum of, say, 5 characters. Let's make it authenticated, and then let's hit save. Okay. We can also set an expiry where it needs to be reset, but you can configure this whichever way you want. Now, if we go back to people and hit edit, we now get this new table right here. And you can see that if we start entering in, well, let me just zoom out so it's a bit obvious. If we start entering in a password, it will tell us what's failed and what has passed. We can also turn this recommendation off. So let me go ahead and turn it off because it's a bit confusing. So let's go back here. Go back to people. And if we start entering in some password, it's going to tell us that, well, first of all, it does a match, but it's also failed. And it tells you the constraints right here on the right-hand side. So if I enter in a password, which I know should pass, come along in here. That means all of them pass. We can see a pass right here. It would be good if somebody put in like a checkbox or something. Maybe that should be a nice little contribution. Just like an emoji checkbox or something, because often I've kind of missed this, and I've missed it when it says failed or passed or something like that. And we hit save, and now we were able to save this account using that particular constraint. So the password policy is a module which I use on pretty much all of my websites. You always want to have it on there, especially if you have a lot of editors logging in. You want to force some type of constraint when it comes to managing accounts. So do we have any questions before we finish up our webinar, well, live stream? Oh, what is this, a webinar or a live stream? I don't know. Isn't a webinar a live stream? Anyway. All right, there's only one more section that I want to cover, but let's just leave it at, yeah, we're going to do one more section and that is it. Okay. Let's now take a look at using specific Drush commands to manage accounts because they actually become very useful for things. So let's open up our terminal, and I will type in Drush, and let's pipe grep user. And Drush actually comes with a lot of useful commands. Now, the ones that I find very useful are user login and password, user password. So let me first show you the user login. Now, this is very useful for working on sites locally, or if you have admin access and you can SSH into things and you want to log in as user and you want to log in as admin as an admin account. So the first one is, what is that? User login, or I like to use the alias. And what you can do, if you hit enter, what's going to happen is it'll generate this token for you. Now, take note that it just adds in a default here on the side. So what you need to do is, if we go -help, I believe we can pass in the URI. So let me just quickly do that. Let me grab it just so we can see it in action. Copy that. Let's close this, and I believe it's URI. Wait, what's the exact command? Is it equals? Ah, yes. All right. URI equals that. It's going to go ahead and give us this this command right here. And what we can do is, if we copy this and let's log out, we can go directly to the page and it'll log us in. And it gives us a one-time password, which is very useful. Another thing you may notice is that it does open up a browser automatically for you. But if you click on, what is it? No browser, it won't open up the browser for you. Another thing you can do is, let's remove the no browser just so you can see it. You can specify a specific user. So if you want to log in using a one-time password with another user account, what you can do, let's bring up the help text. Well, the help, I believe you just need to pass in the name. There we go. So name equals. So let me close this stuff. Let me bring it all back to the top so we can see it. And if I log out and log in with this account. So name equals, there we go. It's generated for me. Come back here and I should log in as this user account right here. That option is pretty handy when you need to log in, when you just need to log in with a specific user account. All right, let's take a look at other options. Another useful one is the user password. So if you want to set the password to a user account, you can do that. So what is that? UPWD. You can set the user account to be admin, and then I can set it also to admin. So that means that right now we are changing the username for the user with the username of admin to admin. We can hit there and automatically change it. So this is useful if you just want to change change passwords quickly and locally. And I do not think the constraints, the password policy module, is checked here because we are doing everything through the command line. So I can go ahead and change Ivan article editor to then just test. It's going to change it for us. Then if I come along in here and click on login, type in Ivan article, and then test, we can log in that way. Again, as I mentioned, this is useful for local development if you want to test out things with user accounts, or if you're in a non-prod environment, or maybe you just SSH into production and you want to log in to user one. I've done it all. All right, now the last feature I'll look at is just the block and unblock. This is useful if you just want to block, again, if you want to block your administrative account or unblock it. And it's pretty straightforward. All you need to do is type in Drush block, and then I believe it'll be name, and then Ivan article editor. Oh no, actually interesting. Oh no, sorry. I believe it'll just be that. There you go. Then if I come along in here, I'll get access denied straight away. Then if I log in as admin, I should be able to see this account has been blocked. If I want to unblock it, I believe it's just unblock. Come along here, and now it is blocked. So as you can see, Drush has a lot of helpful tools for managing user accounts. There's also there is also, if we take a look here, add, remove roles, useful for adding in roles. You can also print out information about users. You can also create users. So there is a lot you can do here directly from Drush to manage your user accounts. So any questions so far in regards to managing accounts with Drush, or just any questions in general? All right, let's just then finish it up. Well, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about Drupal and other CMSs, head over to webwash.net. Also check out the other videos. And if there are any topics you want me to cover, please leave a comment. I'm always on the lookout for topics. I do have a few ideas, but yeah, I'm always on the lookout for topics. So leave them in the comments. If you have any questions about other things in Drupal, just chuck in a comment and I'll do my best to accommodate. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.